As long as you're self-motivated and you're very talented, the sky's the limit. You have to move differently when you see red flags. If it's particularly your manager, to debunk career is you have to go fast. If it's not done at a specific time, specific date, I'm behind, it's not true.
Welcome everybody to the Corporate Warriors podcast. My name is Fela Rosa, and in this special episode, I have Rejoyce Owusu with me. Rejoyce is HR executive at Forbes Black and founder and VP of Umata Consulting. Welcome, Rejoyce, to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thanks for having me as well.
Rejoyce, is there anything that you want to add to my very short introduction?
Absolutely. First of all, it's a wonderful introduction. Just a few things. I've been in HR for the past 12 plus years of my life. It's been my first and only career that I've been in, and I love it. I love everything about people, and I love everything about the development of people. And this is why I continue to work in the human resources aspect. So thank you.
I love it. Yes, a true HR veteran. You must have seen many, many things. And in addition to all those titles and positions and the things that Rejoyce has done already, she also just recently joined the Chief Network. So congratulations also on that. Just hearing all of the things that you've done already in your career, where does the motivation come from? Like, what drives you to do that much?
Yes, it's an excellent question. For me, my motivation comes from my grandparents, my parents, my family in general, and also my internal drive. Particularly, I want to highlight that as a child, I saw my grandmother working extremely hard, raising a family and also working in the fields, doing a lot of different activities back and forth. And I was like, wow, this is a very inspiring woman. And so I looked up to that and I felt that could be me as well. So this is where my motivation comes from.
That is so interesting. And how did you find yourself into the HR field? Because you could use that motivation for any kind of work, really, right?
Yes, that's really true. So, how I landed in human resources, in my opinion, I feel like I've been doing HR my whole life. It just wasn't really classified as human resources. So, as a child, I'm the person that I'm listening to problems. What's going on? How can we resolve this? In my younger years, I also joined a lot of youth development activities where we coach young women, young men on professional development in college. I took on an internship with Target Corporation, and that is where they actually said I'm a people's person. So I was like, well, what is a people's person? And then I discovered it's someone who has passion for people, want people to grow, resolve problems. It could be for both corporations, for employees, or could be even setting the tone for people to be happy where they work or where they engage with other people. And that's been me. My friends would say I'm the go-to person for advice. My friends would say I'm the person that sort of cools the temperature, sort of have the overall vision of where we're going, thinking about how can we best look at problems differently and take a step back and make sure we're all going the right direction.
Wow, that is the HR person that every company needs, I would say. Sometimes it's very difficult for employees also, like how do they approach HR teams, right? Because the HR team is still obviously also employed and working for the employer. And sometimes it's always this strategic question, like, how do I talk to them? Do I, really say what my issue is, or do I try to, pack it up in a nice package just so if the next promotion is around, nobody will remember, oh, she's like, or he's like this problem person, that came with those many things to us. So how would you respond to people with that kind of question? How do you see that?
Yes, first of all, I think traditional HR models has changed. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that later in our conversation. People perceive HR to be the office that you go to when you have a situation, a problem, or you're the problem, or the company sees you're the problem. And it's not that case anymore. And I would like to say that that model has definitely been evolved over the years, especially the 21st century with the invention of technology. HR is the go-to place to resolve issues before it escalates. That's how I would like to put it. And oftentimes it could be a miscommunication issue between two employees. It could be people with different perspectives. It could be a diversity concern or issue. It could be our own biases, as we all have unconscious biases. And sometimes you just need someone else to look at it from a different point of view and say, let's take a step back from here. Maybe this is what you felt. This is how this person felt, to try to resolve those issues. And then, particularly when we talk about career development, you also want HR to be aware of your career and where you would like to go, because we handle the day to day activities of talent review. We also look at where the managers are projecting future jobs. So if HR is not aware of your goals, we can't advocate for you. Our role is to advocate for employees. Of course, it may not happen right away when you come into HR to describe what you're looking for, but having patience, employees having patience and saying, this is what I am, this is where I am right now, and this is where I foresee my career. How can HR be a support for me, an advocator for me, and even suggest things outside of the organization to support that person's professional and personal growth? And oftentimes people don't see our office this way, so they tend to stay away and lose opportunities.
Oh, very interesting. Okay, so what would you say somebody who's like super motivated, how should they approach this?
Yes, absolutely. I think a lot of times it starts with having a conversation with your manager first
Mhm.
about what kind of projects you're working on, to see if there's an opportunity to challenge yourself in different areas if you like. And then also entering HR office, asking for maybe the talent acquisition person, employee engagement person. Every company is structured differently depending on the size and how many people are in HR.
Mhm.
Sometimes even speaking with the head of HR to ask questions about how they got to their career development, and also asking tips and suggestions of people in the organization that can support their goals. Because sometimes your sponsor, like we like to say, is not your manager. Or sometimes the person who's going to be your mentor in the organization is not your manager. It's not your coworkers. Sometimes it has to come from a different functionality from the company, and sometimes it has to be someone from the external sources. Like, for example, chief is a great example of this. If you have you have a talented, super amazing woman in your organization, and you would like to see their leadership skills harnessed, HR can recommend, why don't we see if we can nominate you to become a member of this organization, where they can actually help you and coach you in other areas that probably we would not be able to support from our organization. So a lot of times it's just strategizing, having conversations. Maybe it could be from a lunch date. It could be from breakfast. It could also be an opportunity for you to spend a one-on-one within an HR office. It's not super scary or intimidating as some people may perceive it. I think a lot of times it starts with just a quick email, introduce yourself, where you've been in terms of your career, and looking for advice and being humble for the to go through the process, as HR is also managing other concerns within the organization.
Wow, I love it. I love it. I think you seem like the HR organization from the future. Considering sometimes what you might still hear as a coach, obviously. But I do love the approach. And I would also say there's nothing really to lose. I mean, if we are very motivated, rather articulate it and see if inside the companies there are possibilities, or if there's just one amazing HR person in that organization, that might just be the one person that you need at that moment in time, right? So I love it. I love the work that you're doing. A question that came up while you were saying that, because I think that's also something that the listeners would be interested in.
Mhm.
A lot of the times you talk about the mentors, the sponsors, all of those things, and I think sometimes it can be a very, like it can sound like a complex construct if
Mm.
you have not been there yet. So how can I make sure that I have the right mentor for myself, without like harassing people via email, they don't even know me. Like what have you seen in your HR function or in your own career that works very well for that?
Yes, I think that's a fantastic question. For me, I will give two examples in your question. For me, I have mentors of my own, people who identified me as a mentee, and people who I also identify as a mentor. Because sometimes someone is a mentor to you and you have no idea. It happens.
Mm.
And sometimes you identify someone as a mentor and they don't know as well. It comes, for me, it comes naturally through friendships. So the more we're talking, and I see you have taken an interest in me, and I feel that there's a connection between us, and you honestly ask me questions that's pertaining to my growth, I'm sort of interested to find out why you're interested naturally. And then also, sometimes people will watch you from far. Some people identify that as people who identify talent early, and they can see, well, this person could be going here in this direction, and I want to be part of that journey. And I would like to also support them in this aspect. It has happened to me multiple times. Teachers, I have people in my life. My second grade teacher is someone who's done that for me. She still calls me, checks up on me every stage of my milestones
Wow.
that I reach. I have high school teachers that are still involved in my life, professors that I've connected through in different discussions where they enjoyed what they read from what I wrote and they wanted to dive into my brain a little bit more, or even through my internships. I think internships are great opportunities for early years of someone's career development to find a mentor. And if you have missed that opportunity, which it could happen for different people in their career stages, if you're seasoned or an executive, or you're someone who's in mid career and you're looking for this concept of mentorship, networking is a great opportunity for that. Going to places that pertain to your skill set. If you're in the tech industry, going to tech hubs and then just presenting yourself as a person, overcoming some of those things will definitely help identify a mentor. Or sometimes through LinkedIn, people reach out to you and say, I have a research going on. Can we collaborate? Can we partner? And as you're seeing that person's journey, what they have been through, or asking questions, what's been difficult in your career, if it resonates with you, you may want to start asking that person for more details because they probably will come up in your career as well. So for me, I think it's a two-way fold. You find people that you feel comfortable with, people have had your experience, or potentially could give you more tips into things that you could do a little bit better in your career. And the last thing I would like to say, I've also had mentors see me struggle. So one of the things about career that sometimes we don't talk about is our struggles and the
Mm.
things that we don't do well naturally. I've had mentors who've watched me struggle with certain aspects of my work, and they came up to me and said, you know what, this is my area of strength. I would like to help you get better. And of course, in the beginning, you are resisting because that's not feedback you want to hear. But those are sometimes the best mentors when they say, I see a weakness in you. And if you want to project your career, you want to work on this weakness. And just being humble to listen to them. Of course, if they're coming with a good place, not a place where they want to get you in trouble, or it's a place where they want to belittle you, or make you feel less as, of a human being. But it's more of how can we grow this area because it's something you're struggling with.
Yeah. And I think the corporate world is just so full of people, so you'll find any kind of type basically. So
Right.
what would you recommend to somebody who's like, I'm not sure, is this person on my side, is this person
Mm.
really helping me, or is actually chipping away my self-confidence here?
Right, right. Definitely. It's definitely an experience that happens.
Mhm.
A lot of times I think, and that's a career advice I would offer to anyone because something I went through myself. Like you mentioned, corporate place is very competitive, and oftentimes you're not sure how you're moving with people. And those relationships will come back to help you or hunt you later in your career. And I like to tell people something that I wish I knew when I started my career is learning to observe people more and not trust easily. Observation meaning if they tell you one thing, are they doing the same thing? Or are they telling you one thing and they're doing something different? So if that is occurring more than 3 times, that person is not on your side.
Yes.
And also, something I observed more is speaking less and listening more. You know, early in my career, I probably spoke a little bit more than I wanted to, I'll be honest. And I think if I could go back in time, that's something I would offer as a tip for a young person in a career. Taking everything with a grain of salt. not reacting. First, listening to hear what is being said. If needed, taking notes is probably the best strategy. Something I do more often now. I speak less in meetings, especially in meetings that are strategic meetings.
Mhm.
Speaking less and taking more notes, and then referring back to the notes for clarification if I don't understand something, and taking a step back. It took time for me to understand that. Also, people who are normally on your side tend to give you feedback one on one versus in a group setting. I observed people who tend to want to give you feedback in front of 5 or 10 people typically don't have your best interest at heart. It's a way to sort of, it's the shame walk or the shame game. I don't think that's friendly. I don't think that's nice. And I feel like people who care, they will probably call you on the side and say, you may want to watch out for this, be careful with this. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer that for you. So there are personalities and things people would do to sort of dismantle your leadership or your credibility as a person, and you have to look out for that and make sure you make better decisions when you're around them.
Yeah. Wow, Rejoice. I think in some ways we could already wrap up the podcast because you've said so many so important things in just the last 5 minutes. And I think that's also sometimes the exact thing. If you're in this hyper motivated phase, and we all go through phases, right? And I think everybody who's kind of making it in corporate still has or has had this like hyper motivation at some point. And what you don't want to hear is be humble and listen
Right,
because
right,
you want to act, right? But I
right.
think that is exactly the right thing to do. Watch people what they're doing versus what they say they will do. Every area of your life, right? Do that, please, more often, way more often. And listen, yes, listen. And the interesting thing is what you just said. You would have liked to receive that kind of piece of advice in the beginning of your career, but the reality is this goes through your whole career, right? Also, as a leader, we're supposed to listen way more.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think there's a lot of capacity still in corporate for those strategies, let's say.
Yes, yes, absolutely. But you
I
learn.
love it. What would you recommend if people be like, oh, okay, I hear you.
Mhm.
Now that I think about it, I do see some red flags that I have not seen before with my either with my team, with my manager,
Mhm.
with the people that directly really affect my career development. What would your piece of advice be to those kinds of people?
Yes, and it happens more than people think. It happens to a lot of people, all of us, I guess. I would say being a little bit careful when you see the red flags is extremely important. And also, don't go against your conscience or what you think or you feel. I feel like those things are supposed to be defense mechanisms to protect you. Always, if you feel someone does not really have your best interests at heart, find people to be in a meeting with versus just you and that person. So then it becomes he said, she said type of situation.
Mm.
So you sort of have to move a little bit differently when you see some red flags and you feel like it's not in your best interest. Also, if it's particularly your manager, you have to take a different approach. This is where you need collaboration and you need partnerships from other people in the organization, such as making sure your skills are being demonstrated for other people to see, so then it's not hidden and then people can't really put their hands on it, like whether you're doing something that is productive for the organization or not. Also, looking at ways to grow yourself, asking for feedback from other people. Sometimes it could be something that you're doing. Like I mentioned, sometimes when these situations are happening, there's a ton of things going on. It's just not one situation. Sometimes it could be an accumulation of different events that have occurred in the past, where you sort of have to either take a step back and go backwards to fix it, which if it's fixable, and sometimes it's not fixable, where you sort of have to make a decision. Is it time to exit, um, you know, uh, professionally, and find a place where you can start over, or maybe exit the group or the team. There's many options that are out there to sort of help you make sure you're making the right decision. Sometimes you also have to consider your mental health. And the reality is, we don't tend to talk about this, but it's a huge part of our lives. And especially now in the 21st century, 22nd, third century that we're talking about, mental health is impacting leaders in the corporate environment or even leaders anywhere, where we're seeing more and more people taking decisions that are not favorable to the humanity of people because of stress or because of things that are happening behind the scenes, where they could have taken a different route if they had the support or they have the channel to make a better decision for themselves, and not do something harmful to themselves if it's affecting them emotionally, physically, psychologically, and etc. So there are many options, and I think that's where you sort of have to go through a process of elimination and try to make sure you're doing what is best for you and also for the organization.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think, as you said, the mental health topic, when I'm talking with other coaches, what often pops up is that the moment somebody searches for a career growth leadership coach is when the catalyst moment has already happened or they're in the midst of it,
Right,
right?
right.
So also perhaps a shout out to also there see the red flags and become a little bit more sensitive towards it, not just push the own feelings, the intuition, everything, as you said, there's so much going on. We do need to be able to connect with ourselves early on
Mhm.
to see the things before the catalyst moment, the burnout, whatever it is happens. Because I think what is making me so alert about this is that once something like that happens, it affects our whole lives, not
Yeah,
just the career.
yeah.
And this is what we tend to forget sometimes, because I guess we try to separate it in our minds, but we're always the same person. And if we get hit real hard at our job, then that will have some negative ripple effects, very, very likely in our private lives as well. So, yeah, perhaps also a big shout out to the people that think they can still push through. Be a little bit careful, listen to yourselves,
Yes.
and take the needed steps before a major event happens. You were saying a lot of really good things, but let us try to be even a bit more specific so we can really give somebody something at hand, right? How to actually do it. So you said, okay, I know the red flags. What happens if, somebody's not on my side? What are some things that I could look out for? Now, if I'm not yet ready to leave the corporation, which I think is a good thing because it's good to build, some momentum, but I want to exit the team. How do I do that in a way that I do not burn the bridges, right?
Mm.
Because especially the managers that might be, perhaps not at the professional height we would like them to see, they might take things personally. So do
Right.
you have any piece of advice there? What would you recommend somebody in that kind of situation?
Yes, we've seen a few of these types of situations.
Hmm.
A lot of times, burning bridges is one of those things we try to tell people not to do, right? I think that is something traditionally a lot of times we say, be careful, you never know where you may meet the person and etc. Um, and I will also like to say, as someone in HR looking into the future, and I love the future of HR, I am confident to also say that sometimes you do need to burn those bridges.
Oh, interesting.
And
Hmm.
that's a different twist that I have actually develop myself into to thinking, because there's some bridges you don't need to cross anymore. There's so many opportunities in this world. Why always worrying about one bridge that's just a piece of just something that you're just walking on, and you have many other bridges that you're going to see and foresee. However, if you want to stay in the organization and there's things going on that's a red flag and you really want to mend those relationships, oftentimes the burden becomes on you if you're not in that leadership role to make a difference, to sort of close the gaps. What I mean by closing the gaps is going to that person and finding a way to a neutral ground. A lot of times I like to say, as we talk to people, we have more things in common that we think we don't. We just don't know. We haven't discovered it yet. So finding ways to sort of find things that you have similar to that person, mirroring things that they like often helps. And showing your human side. And this is where the human side comes into work. Everyone likes to be praised when they've done something well. This is just a common human trait. When people are happy, people tend to smile, giving compliments to that person, building those small skills to make the person understand who you are as a person, and to see if that bridge can be resolved and you can actually demonstrate that you have good intentions for the organization. Number one. Number two, you have talents that's going to support the team. And three, admitting to a mistake that occurred. whether it's right or wrong, admitting that a mistake occurred. And I think most of us, part of being a human being, when you see someone is acknowledging that something has occurred, you tend to take a step back as well and say, okay, well, at least this person knows this did not go well. Now, how do we move forward? That becomes another conversation. You can ask for feedback from that person that maybe you sort of have a red flag with and say, what could I do differently for us to get to this stage in our working relationship? I don't also believe that at work you're supposed to be best friends with everyone. I don't have that mindset. I have the mindset as it's a place of work, it's a professional arena. You can have a professional face, like a professional tone, but you don't have to agree on every single aspect of different ideas, different thoughts. Actually, if you work in an organization where everything is uniformed in terms of thoughts, it's probably very groupthink and it doesn't drive innovation, in my opinion. And if you're someone who wants innovation, it's fine to probably call it quits at that time if you feel that it's not the right fit. The reason why I say this is because we can't always keep people at places that they don't shine. That is not a message as an HR person. I like to give people go where you're loved, you're accepted, go where your skills are harnessed the best, because this is where you're going to make the most impact. You can be somewhere for 20 years trying to bridge a gap for 20 years and it's not working. Your skills are not being developed. They probably don't like you. You don't like them. So, what are you gaining from this? And it's a very short life that we have to live. So, if you want to go somewhere that you can make an impact, of course, look at the mistakes of the past, correct those mistakes. That would also be a healthy approach.
Okay. Wow. Good. I think that will give some food for thought for people that are in similar situations and help them come up with a strategy, hopefully. So, what is it that would you say? You've worked so long in HR. Do you see a specific pattern? You also talked a lot about the future of HR, but also the future of corporations overall. Do you see a specific need for a certain type of manager, leader?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think many organizations are doing this assessment right now. And if they're not, they're very behind. With the introduction of how fast technology is moving, you need leaders who are technologically savvy. If they're not helping your organization grow because there's so much you can tap into with technology, chat GPT, Copilot. All of that is integrating in the types of work we do to help us be more efficient, to communicate faster. And if that person is not interested in anything that's technologically focused, it's probably going to drive a lot of things backwards for you. We need more leaders to be collaborative, the ability to see if I collaborate with this office and this office, I can get these results versus a leader that's more silo into just their work functions is not going to help the organization come up with new ideas, compete, and also make profitable scale sales if they are in that industry. Even if they're in a nonprofit, you still need to be profitable for different reasons for you to get the investments that you need to run your organization. Another type of leader we probably don't need in this arena is leaders who are reactive. You need proactive leaders. You need someone who's thinking in the future. And that's why I'm saying the future of work, because this technology that we're being introduced right now is just the beginning. There's so much that's coming in the future. So if you're not preparing your team for the types of work we're doing now with the addition of technology, you're always going to be catching up and the problems are not going anywhere. Part of having an organization is to come up with solutions for problems. And the best types of leaders you need are the leaders that are foreseeing the problem before the problems arrive. And I think those are the types of leaders that will be successful in the types of work that we're going to be doing in the future of work and the collaboration of technology and human beings. You need leaders who are adaptable to change. If you have leaders who are not change oriented, you are in huge trouble because we have an environment that change is happening instantly. As I'm talking to you right now, there are updates that are being done everywhere. So if the person is against change, it's like you're going against the grains. Everyone is moving this way and you're sort of left behind. And we don't need organizations to be left behind.
It's capitalism. They won't stay there very long, right?
No.
That's the thing. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Thank you so much for that. While you were listing out all of these different things, whatever, at every point, basically, what you said, what we don't need anymore, where we should go to, what came to my mind, from the other side, from the coaching side, from the I work a lot with the conscious, but also with the subconscious mind, was this, for every point that you made, I thought, yeah, that's why you cannot have leaders with deeply rooted insecurities,
Right.
because if you are insecure as a person, you will be reactive, you will be afraid to try out something new, you will try to protect rather than create, right? So this is really interesting, and I think why also we cannot just create the leaders on the outside, meaning you have to look like this, talk like this, negotiate like this, but we need also to create the leaders on the inside that have the strength, the inner strength, to go out there and really put themselves out there with it. Because if they go into a direction and it doesn't work, they might have to pay for that too. But
Right.
they still need the courage and the motivation and the inspiration to do that, right? And not be afraid and react out of a situation of fear. Oh, if I do that, it might be seen like that. If it goes wrong, then we'll never go anywhere, really.
Yes, yes, you're
Yeah.
absolutely right about that. And I think you're making a very good point on coaching. I also believe in coaching because I don't believe anyone gets anywhere by themselves. There are teams of people behind that person. You're meeting the person, but you're also not meeting the people behind how that person became who they are. For example, the way the person speaks, the confidence, there's a coaching for that. Executive presence, having that type of presence so people respect and also respect your industry and your ability to demand authority in that area. You need coaching for these things. And then the soft skills that you mentioned are extremely important to drive organizations to success. So a lot of times you need these things as a backbone as a leader to sort of help you improve. For me, it's all about improving and being better as a leader because no one is ever perfect. If you're
Yes.
perfect, then there's no change. Then if there's no change, there's no improvement. So there's always an opportunity for you to harness into your skills a little bit better, sharpen them a little bit better, and get the guidance you need from people you trust and people that are going to be honest with you with those feedbacks.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. That's also where the humbleness comes in again, right?
Right.
That doesn't go away. That's in the beginning of the career as important as late in the later stages in order to constantly improve and be able to go into the change situations. Wow. Okay. Perfect. I love that. To hear that. What do you say right now? If you take a look at the leaders, do you think most of them are already investing in these kinds of things like coaching? I mean, there's a different set, right? As you said, it's a whole lot of people. It's not just a coach, right? Some
Right.
people have therapy on the side. Some people have one mentor. Somebody have many mentors, right? There's also the support system in their social and private lives that leads to increased resilience levels, right? So what would you say? How aware are leaders right now of all of that? And is it already normal that they know they have to, use that, harness that, grow that network for themselves? Just like a sports person, basically like a sports professional, right? They have somebody to take care of their body, they have somebody to take care of their mindset, they have also hopefully like a family and friends that support them. Like how do you see that? Do you think that's already like common knowledge these days, or is it something to work towards?
It's a good question. I think 7, 10 years ago, it was not common knowledge at
Hmm.
all. I think coaching it was a privilege for executives only. Middle management or entry level professional. It wasn't thought about that someone like that needs a coach. However, things are changing rapidly, and also with the invention of technology and social media, as an example, we're seeing the results of what coaching is doing for people in their industries. People are boasting online about this coach helped me with this. And all those shared experiences are giving awareness into this area of getting that support, whether it's an executive coaching, management coaching, leadership coaching, soft skills coaching, public speaking coaching, whichever types of coaching that people need. I believe there is awareness out there. However, it hasn't reached everyone. And this is where sometimes people who are a fan of this area put themselves out there to tell more and more people. And also organizations that have HR use this opportunity to, if there's a problem, sometimes this is where it starts. We have an issue and we see there's lack of gaps in skills. We tend to recommend, maybe moving forward, let's recommend this coach for this person to help them improve in this area in a private matter. It's a one-on-one. And then companies, I'm seeing from my personal observations, I'm seeing more and more companies investing in their leaders in this area.
Yeah.
Traditionally, it was management training. So we came up with management training, a professional development training, and those things were supposed to mimic what a coach does. But, we have learned that it's not effective. It works for a purpose, but it's not effective in making the change. It's just a day or a week, or we go on a weekend and we talk about how we're going to drive sales, we're going to improve people. We put on a show, we do all those things. However, when we come back to our organizations, putting the skills that we talked about during these seminars and events to practice becomes a little bit more challenging. And we're seeing that investing and actually creating a portfolio for a coach and a person who we want to invest in our organization is more effective because they get the attention they need. It's not a group setting. It's your specific concerns we would like to improve on, or your specific skills we would like to use more. Because sometimes a coach is not always improving things you don't do well. Sometimes a coach is also helping in things you do really well and how you can continue to push the limit in that area. And I think a lot of HR professionals are a strong advocate when it comes to this area, talking to CEOs or talking to our stakeholders about why we need extra funds for specific coaching for specific executives or managers, because it works. And we know that the data out there suggests that too.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. Just a last thought. I think also it has changed so much in my personal opinion and experience, because if you look back when I talk, to somebody, my dad, he was not very much into careers, but his kind of age group, or even a little bit older, things were so much slower. We had time as humans to adapt. And now, as you said, with like technology, everything is just the speed of innovation, the speed of change is just increasing, which is why I think, and this is just my personal opinion, that has become more the norm as well, because otherwise we would see the best people sometimes drop out, and we don't want that. So we need to help them keep up with this huge speed, which is sometimes a little bit even crazy, I guess, to the human organism, that it like stems from, the caveman times still, and now all of a sudden we have AI, 20 new tools each week. It feels like sometimes, right? You always want to stay ahead of the curve or the curves, because there are plenty of curves,
Yes.
So I think it's like a mix of many different things, but yeah, I can totally see that as well. And thank you so much for sharing those insights as well.
Absolutely.
What would you say? I know we are already getting towards the end, so I'm trying to figure out what's the best thing, how you can end this podcast with the most value. So what would you say is perhaps one misconception or one thought, one career advice that you would like to debunk? Something that you think perhaps it worked in the past, it doesn't anymore. What is it that people are still, taking with them, but it's not really helpful?
Yes, I think one thing I would like to say to debunk career is you have to go fast. I think people have, especially millennials and the people behind millennials, there's this concept that in order to achieve success, you have to do it quickly. And if it's not done at a specific time, specific date, I'm behind. It's not true. We know that the pace of success for everyone is different. And some do happen quickly, I'll be honest, for some people. And sometimes it takes a couple of years for others. And sometimes it takes a break. Sometimes, especially for us women, sometimes, you're going to prioritize your family first if you want to. And then after that, you come back into the arena again. And that's okay. There isn't a one way or a one size fit for all types of people. And I used to think that early in my career that, I have to get this one checked off my list. I had a list. Let me check this off. If I didn't do this, I'm behind. But I've learned from my mentors that I truly appreciate. but life is all about your plan. And sometimes your plan may not work out. And you really have to reassess things. Like, for example, COVID-19, no one planned that. It just happened to us. And we have to quickly adjust. Working from home was not something that we thought about. We're going to put a ton of employees in that type of situation. So things happen. Being flexible in your career, taking a deep breath is okay. If you make a mistake, it's okay. As long as, to me, or my biggest advice I like to share, as long as you're a motivated person, self motivated, or if you need motivation from others and you're very talented, the sky's the limit. You can always jump back into the arena. It's not going anywhere to sort of make an impact on whatever area of interest that you have. And family is important. I also like to debunk the idea that if you're a young professional, you can't have family at the same time. That's not true. I think there is a lot of work with that, maintaining corporate life and also maintaining home life. But there are ways to do it. There are women who are doing it. Sometimes when you get close to a group net of women, you get to learn from them, or even family members. How do you balance, your work life and also your home life? If you have a partner, you have a husband, you have kids, how do you do those things? How do you prioritize to make sure they're feeling the love that they need and support, so you can also be whole as a person and be fulfilled, if that's what you want? I used to think it wasn't possible. If you're on this path, you're going to continue that path until you're ready to hop off that path and then start a family. But I don't believe that anymore. I believe if you have a supportive partner who understands your drive, of course, and supports your dreams, they're able to even push you more than you can ever think about and help as much as they can, to make sure you achieve everything for the legacy of your family, as long as you're both working together collaboratively.
Wow, I love those pieces of advice. Just to round up a very, very insightful podcast. Rejoice, thank you so much for taking that time. Is there anything else that you would like to add? Or if not, where can the audience also find you and or connect with you?
Yes, Fela, I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me to your podcast. I've really enjoyed myself here, and the questions you've asked were super, super amazing. I believe they're helpful and it's needed. And like you said earlier, these are topics that influence people and help people to be better and help all of us also be better. If the audience is interested in finding me, my first place will be LinkedIn. If you type in my name, you'll find me on LinkedIn. I love connecting with people. Don't hesitate to send me a message. I'm happy to respond. My personal email is also rejoice, as you see, .owusu@gmail.com. Those are the best places to sort of catch me. I'm happy to collaborate with anyone who's interested.
Well, thank you so much, Rejoice. Have a wonderful rest of the day and hope to see you soon again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Take care.